actually killed here or not. His tent is right here, and right here, and right over here there was a right where you're standing. Right, it was no, don't hit me. Right here was his vehicle. And it was either a white Nissan pickup or a white Toyota pickup. And this was in the days before there were Tacomas and stuff like that. It was just a Toyota truck or a Nissan pickup, but it was parked right here. And the story was, and I got this straight from one of my friends that I grew up with. It was a law enforcement ranger up here, and it was Monday morning, 7 o'clock. The phone rang there at the headquarters, and law enforcement headquarters, which is back just south here. We drove right by the entrance of it, and there was a lady and her husband had been up here bow hunting, and for the weekend, and it was not uncommon for him to, if he happened to arrow a deer late in the afternoon, late Sunday afternoon, they typically, you wait 30-45 minutes before you go off to recover the deer, and then, you know, if he had trouble finding it or whatever, or had a long way to drag it out, she said it was not uncommon for him to not get back home till 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. So she went to bed that night. He wasn't home. She got up Monday morning. He still wasn't home. So she called up here and asked if they would, you know, said her husband was out here bow hunting, hadn't come home. Well, what does he drive? Well, let's say it's a white Nissan. He drives a white Nissan, tag number, yada yada. They said, one of the rangers said, oh yeah, I've seen him. He's camped up there north of the what is it, Silver Trail Road here? The next road south of here. Yeah, he's camped off there off the old Trail Ridge Road. This road here, the gravel road that we were on, was the old original road that followed what's called the divide between the Cumberland River watershed and the Tennessee River watershed. And they built this road that followed the divide. And what that means is, if you don't know, when rain falls on it, everything on this side of that road or this side of the divide goes into the Cumberland River that way, and everything on that side goes west to the Tennessee River. And this road, that gravel road, used to go the whole length of LBL, but obviously it would take forever to drive up through there. So, you know, sometime in the past they paved and made the trace road that we were just driving on, and that cuts out a lot of the squiggles. It roughly follows the divide, but it's not right exactly on it like the old gravel road was. And there's sections of the old gravel road all up and down through here. But anyway, at the time, this timber was not as large. It had been logged off, and you could see all the way out on you could get glimpses standing here of cars going up and down the trace, and you might still be able to, but I don't think so. But anyway, that's been, you know, it's been 12-15 years since that happened. So a lot of this has grown up, and a lot of this brush under here, you can't see through there as well. Anyway, so they drove up here. Oh, and my friend was sitting there, and the guy said, come on, follow me. And my buddy, he was sort of a junior here, he hadn't been here very long, and okay, fell in behind them. They drove up here, drove right to the place. They pulled up in this road here. That road used to be in a lot better shape. They pulled up in here, and they said immediately they saw that the tent was torn all to pieces, just literally slashed to shreds. And they came over here. The guy's sleeping bag was laying right around here, right about the back of the truck, and it was torn all to pieces. And his bow was laying about right there, right in front of where you're standing, Kurt. The bow, it was a compound bow. It was broken. They don't know if it was broken, that he was using it as as a guard trying to protect himself, or if he hit the thing with it. It had a snap-off quiver. The quiver was laying about another 4 or 5 feet. All 6 of the arrows were still in the quiver. There were no arrows missing. so they don't think he ever got a shot off it. And they didn't find an arrow around here anywhere. And there were pieces of his clothing, tatters and stuff laying around. And the disturbing thing was there was a very easy to follow drag trail. Apparently it grabbed him by the back feet and grabbed him by his feet and drug him and went more or less east. He said there's another field over there. He sort of went down through the wood, through this draw up that way, and he went 1.5 miles almost due east down to, they followed it and down to in a place called Racetrack Hollow. And off to the, there are a series of crop fields where they plant stuff for the deer. One field that's sort of isolated off on the north side that's very small compared to the rest of them, and that's where he went with it. At the time, the field had a little, it was sort of overgrown on the east side, and that's where he went with the guy's body. When he said that it was a very easy to follow trail. They immediately called before they started after him. They called for backup, and a bunch of folks come here. They started following it, and he said when they came out into this little corner of the field that really wasn't, and he took me over there, not much bigger than this part right here of this field, and they said they found his body over to the edge, and on the south side, a lot of his clothes were thrown up into a tree. His body was slashed up quite a bit, and he had been fed on. Part of it had been eaten. And they determined by measuring, if y'all remember Jaws, it talks about something called bite radius. By doing a bunch of measurements of the bites and stuff, they determined that it was the same type of animal that killed the people back in the early 1980s up the road here at the old RV park. They measured the widths of the claws. They determined it absolutely positively wasn't a cougar. It had close to the same spread as a bear, however the angle was different. They could tell as the thing clawed his back, the angle of attack on the ribs was wrong for it to be a bear. If the claws were straighter much straighter than a bear's claws. Any of y'all that have seen bear's claws, they've got a very pronounced curve in it. These were straighter claws, and they were also considerably sharper than a bear's claw. They were much cleaner tears, but basically, you know, they didn't. It was kept very, very, very tightly under wraps. Y'all met the other night. We call him Kentucky Mark. He's been researching this for years, and he's only been able to find one written account of it in anything, you know, like a newspaper or anything. And like I said, I got it straight from one of the law enforcement officers that was a lifetime friend of mine that retired from up here, and he was still active duty up here when he brought me up here and showed this to me. Just past this, there is a road that goes back, winds around and goes back to Racetrack Hollow, but it was so torn up by all the traffic and everything at the time that you couldn't get down through there. In fact, he told me that he said, man, he said that road is so torn up after all the investigation, all the traffic and everything. He said it would take a tracked vehicle to get in there. So for us to get back in there to Racetrack Hollow, we went way around to the north and came in from the north side. So, but that's about all I know about it. Anybody got any questions?
What year did you say it happened?
It was in the early 2000s. It was around,
recent.
Yeah, it was around 02, maybe 01, 02, somewhere around in there. The earlier killings where the family forward killed was in sometime between 81 and 85, somewhere around there, the early 80s. But This happened in the very early 2000s. Mark Maycheck had just moved up here when it happened, and he heard about it. The news spread like wildfire through the local community, and there was all kind of people driving up here, and they had the whole road out there lined with police tape, and they wouldn't even let you stop on the road. You know, he said he came up here and he was going to drive by. Well, they were out there directing, giving him the bum rush. He goes, move along, go, nothing to see. You know, well, no, they were. Anyway, they were getting them out of here, and he said he came back by like the next day, and they had the roads blocked off. You couldn't even turn off the train to get up in here. But he said it was a tremendous amount of vehicles and stuff sitting around. So it was a very big deal, taken very seriously, because they were afraid they had something in here that was going to kill other people, like the one back in the 80s further north.
What was the wife told?
Go ahead.
What was the wife told the family?
Have no idea. Probably, most likely, you know, as an animal attack, because there are a few bears in here. There are quite a few wolves in here, and there are a few cougars in here. So, I mean, Clint and I talked to the guy down at that ran down there where you get the showers at Wranglers. He said, I don't care what they say. He said there's absolutely positively bears in here. There's absolutely positively cougars in here, and there's absolutely positively wolves in here. Now, I've seen wolves, but I've never seen a cougar or a bear in here. But most likely it would be the easiest to sell it off as a bear attack. However, when a bear kills somebody, they feed on the body right where they kill it, and at most they'll drag it a few feet. They'll scratch some little bit of dirt and leaves and stuff over it, and they'll come back later to feed on it again. A bear, there's no known predator that will drag a human body 1.5 miles.
At least not on this continent.
Right, not on this continent, yeah.
So what was the official cause of death?
That's what I just said. Possibly an animal attack of some kind.
So it drug it 1.5 miles instead of carrying it.
The trouble with the coroners up here are just good old boys that are they're elected. You don't earn the job. It's a popularity contest. They're just good old boys. And, you know, think about it. You had to put your name on there. He said it was really easy to follow it. He said that periodically they'd find a piece of clothes or something off of it. He said that it might have stopped it. Took a biopsy out of it.
Buggery.